more than 2,800 shells. That's how many were fired by the British fleet at a single ship on the morning of May 27, 1941, in the cold waters of the Atlantic. 4 Royal Navy ships engaged her. The guns fired for hours. Shells tore through armor, decks, and superstructures. And yet, even after all that, the British ships could not sink her alone. This is the story of one of the most famous warships of the Second World War, the Battleship Bismarck. Bismarck made only one combat sortie, just 8 days. In that time, she sank Britain's largest battlecruiser, stunned Churchill, forced the Royal Navy to commit half its fleet to the hunt, and forever changed the tactics of naval warfare. Today, we will break her down section by section, from the shipyards of Hamburg to the floor of the Atlantic at a depth of nearly 5 kilometers. Using modern AI tools, I have reconstructed the ship's interior based on technical drawings, archival photographs, and survivor accounts. July 1st, 1936. The Blohm and Voss shipyard in Hamburg, one of the oldest in Germany, founded in 1877. This is where construction began on a ship that would receive yard number 509 and the code name Ersatz Hanover, intended to replace the outdated battleship Hanover. Bismarck was unlike almost any ship built before her. Nearly 90% of her hull was welded rather than riveted, cutting-edge technology at the time. The hull was divided into 22 watertight compartments, and a double bottom ran along 83% of the ship's length. This was not just a ship, it was a fortress at sea. But there were problems. The original plan called for a turbo-electric propulsion system from Siemens, the most advanced of its kind. Just a month before construction began, Siemens withdrew from the contract. The designers were forced to switch to steam turbines. That decision limited the ship's operational range and became one of her greatest weaknesses. Construction took 4 years. When the ship was finally launched on February 14, 1939, she displaced 41,700 tons and cost the Reich 196 million Reichsmarks, roughly equivalent to about $2 billion today. More than 60,000 spectators gathered for the launch ceremony. Hitler attended in person. Bismarck's granddaughter smashed a bottle of champagne against the hull. Bismarck became the largest and most powerful battleship of the German Navy during the Second World War. She measured 823 feet in length. If placed upright, Bismarck would be taller than the Eiffel Tower. Her beam was 118 feet, and her full load displacement reached 50,300 tons. During sea trials, the ship exceeded 30 knots, surpassing her design specifications. For a battleship of that size, it was an extraordinary speed. But the most impressive feature was her armor. The main belt along the waterline measured 12.6 inches of Krupp cemented steel. The main gun turrets were protected by 14.2 inches of armor at the front and 8.7 inches on the sides. The deck armor ranged from 2 to 4.7 inches in thickness. The central citadel, protecting the boilers, turbines, and ammunition magazines, was virtually immune to enemy fire. At the heart of her firepower were 8 15-inch main guns, mounted in 4 turrets, 2 forward, Anton and Bruno, and 2 aft, Caesar and Dora. These guns could strike targets at distances of over 21.7 miles, firing shells weighing up to 1,764 pounds each. The secondary armament consisted of 12 5.9-inch guns in 6 turrets, optimized for engaging destroyers and cruisers. Her anti-aircraft defense included 16 4.1-inch guns in 8 twin mounts, along with dozens of 37mm and 20mm automatic guns. Bismarck's fire control system operated on 3 levels, all operating simultaneously, in perfect synchronization. The first level was the range-finding stations. One was positioned atop the mast, about 98 feet above the water, and another on the aft superstructure. Each was equipped with a stereoscopic rangefinder with a 23-foot base. The operator aligned two images of the enemy ship into one. At that precise moment, the device calculated the distance. The second level was the central fire control station, located deep within the hull beneath the armored deck. All data converged here: range, target course and speed, wind, air temperature, and the ship's own speed. This information was fed into a Siemens mechanical computer, an entirely analog device with no electronics, relying purely on mechanics and mathematics. It produced firing solutions for the turrets. The third level was the turrets themselves. They received the calculated data and simply executed the firing commands. Bismarck's brain during battle was the command post, a massive armored tower located in the center of the superstructure, from which Captain Lindemann and Admiral Lutyens directed the ship and the squadron in combat. The forward conning tower was a cylindrical armored structure with incredibly thick walls, 13.8 inches of armor, capable of withstanding direct hits from heavy shells. Inside, space was extremely limited, just enough for essential equipment and a few key officers. Visibility came through narrow slits in the armor, small openings only a few inches wide, through which officers could observe the sea and enemy ships. Inside were engine telegraphs, telephones and voice pipes, steering controls, and basic navigational instruments. The radio room connected the ship to the outside world. It was a separate compartment filled with rows of Telefunken transmitters, receivers, and Enigma encryption machines, operated by a specialized team of radio operators and cryptographers from the 9th Division. German Telefunken radio equipment was renowned for its quality and power. The main transmitters could send signals over thousands of miles, maintaining contact with Group West headquarters in Paris and the Naval High Command in Berlin, even from the middle of the Atlantic. Radio operators worked around the clock in 3 shifts, receiving orders, weather reports, and intelligence data, while continuously transmitting updates on the ship's position and status. We descend 3 decks below. Everything changes. The noise becomes deafening. The temperature rises to over 45 degrees Celsius, and the air smells of oil and steam. This is the engine room. 12 Wagner boilers, arranged in 3 compartments. Each boiler is the size of a 2-story building. Inside, water is heated to over 450 degrees Celsius at a pressure of 58 atmospheres. Steam flows through pipes to the turbines. 3 Blohm and Voss steam turbines convert that steam into the rotation of the propeller shafts, generating up to 150,000 horsepower. Bismarck's medical bay was likely one of the best-equipped facilities aboard any warship of its time. 3 chief physicians and 9 medical orderlies, 2 operating tables with full surgical lighting, articulated lamps that remained steady even in heavy seas, an X-ray machine, rare even in many shore-based hospitals of that era, sterilizers, a full set of surgical instruments, and supplies of morphine, ether, and bandaging materials. The sick bay could accommodate 20 patients, real beds with mattresses, not hammocks. An injured sailor would find himself in a space strikingly different from the crew quarters, clean, quiet, with even a small porthole above each bed. There was also an isolation ward, a separate compartment for infectious cases. On a ship where 2,000 men lived in close quarters, a single outbreak could destroy combat readiness faster than any enemy shell. Any sailor with a fever or suspicious symptoms was immediately sent into isolation. The pharmacy occupied a separate room. Hundreds of medicines stored in locked glass cabinets. The ship's pharmacist kept strict records of every vial. Several galleys operated on the middle decks. The main galley was a large, low-ceilinged space filled with constant heat, steam, and the smell of food being prepared in massive quantities. At the center were large steam kettles, massive double-walled cylindrical vessels where steam circulated between the layers. These were used to cook soups, stew meat, and prepare vegetables in bulk. A single kettle could produce enough food to feed hundreds of men. Next to them were electric stoves and grills used for frying meat, cooking eggs, and preparing dishes that required direct heat. A point of particular pride was the bakery, a small compartment with several industrial ovens, where hundreds of loaves of fresh bread were baked around the clock. More than 2,200 men lived aboard Bismarck under conditions that varied sharply by rank. Admiral Günther Lütjens, the commander of the operation, had private quarters in the aft superstructure, a working office, a bedroom, and a reception room for briefings. The office contained a writing desk, a cabinet filled with charts and documents, a telephone, and a voice pipe linking directly to the bridge. The bedroom was furnished with a built-in leather bed, a wardrobe for uniforms, and a wash basin with a mirror. Captain Ernst Lindemann had his own cabin nearby. Slightly smaller than the Admiral's, it still included both a workspace and a sleeping area. Senior officers' cabins were more modest, but still private. Each officer of the rank of lieutenant commander and above had a personal space roughly 3 by 4 meters. A narrow bed built into the wall, a small desk with raised edges to keep papers from sliding off in heavy seas, a tiny wardrobe, and a porthole if they were lucky. Petty officers lived in separate compartments on the middle decks. These were medium-sized spaces where 15 to 20 men shared the same area. Bunks were arranged in 2 tiers along the walls, with narrow passageways in between. Each petty officer had a metal locker for personal belongings, letters, photographs, spare uniforms, toiletries. That was everything he owned aboard. More than 1,900 enlisted sailors slept in living compartments on the lowest decks, farthest from fresh air and daylight. These were large spaces where 40 to 80 men shared a single room. Their bunks were arranged in 3 tiers along the walls, metal frames with tightly stretched canvas instead of mattresses. A sailor's personal space amounted to a small chest beneath his bunk. Inside, a spare uniform, basic toiletries, letters from home, perhaps a single book or a deck of cards. That was all. There was no more room. Officers dined in a separate wardroom, resembling a military club or restaurant. Tables were covered with white tablecloths, set with porcelain, bearing the ship's insignia and silver cutlery. Stewards served meals directly at the table, and officers could eat in relative calm, discussing operations or simply taking a break from their duties. Petty officers had their own mess, a medium-sized space with long tables and benches. There were no white tablecloths, but food was served on metal plates, with larger portions than those of the enlisted men. The atmosphere was more informal. Experienced petty officers could speak more freely, share knowledge with younger sailors, and discuss the workings of the ship without the strict formality of officer hierarchy. The enlisted crew ate on a large mess deck, a vast compartment on the lower decks, filled with dozens of long metal tables and benches, where hundreds of men could sit at once. Food was distributed through a serving line. Sailors approached with their metal bowls and mugs to receive their rations. By the standards of the time, the diet was generous: fresh meat, vegetables, potatoes, sauerkraut, smoked sausages, and even desserts. Bismarck served in the Kriegsmarine for just 9 months of active service. 1 deployment, 8 days, and yet it was enough to make her immortal. After the loss of Bismarck, Hitler forbade Germany's major surface ships from conducting open-sea operations permanently. Tirpitz, Bismarck's sister ship, remained in a Norwegian fjord until the end of the war and never engaged in a full-scale naval battle. The era of battleships was coming to an end, and Bismarck became its most thunderous final note. In 1989, Robert Ballard, the same explorer who discovered Titanic, found the wreck of Bismarck. The ship lies at a depth of nearly 5 kilometers. Her armor remains intact. Her turrets rest beside the hull. She looks as if she simply lay down to rest. 2002, 100 men went to sea. 114 returned. The rest are still there.